Hey everybody, it's Dan Mori with Staffing Monthly, the industry's digital publication to bring you actionable insights from the industry's thought leader, as well as review the coolest new innovative resources, products, services that you can have to help your agency grow and succeed. And one of the resources that I wanted to share with you is somebody that I actually met at the Aviante Connect conference a couple of months ago. And I was really impressed with what they're doing. For those of you that know me, you know that I teach a lot about KPIs and metrics and how to understand the data that your business is generating, and really more importantly, how to analyze that data to know what is good business, what's not good business, what's a good practice, what's not a good practice, to help you really optimize your operation for you to grow and succeed in your practice. And obviously, when we're talking about KPIs and metrics, there's a ton that you can be looking at, but not all of it should be looked at, and not all of it is easily visible and provides clarity and granularity to help you make the most important decisions quickly. And that's why I really liked what OneUp is doing. And they are a tech platform, but really what they're doing is they actually align with the KPIs of your business, and they're prepared to show it in a way that helps you understand who in your organization is driving success and who is not, who's doing the best work and following the best practices and who is not. And I love that because that helps you do more of what is necessary to succeed and eliminate kind of what's not. So I actually invited them out to come talk about their platform today and show it to you. And I have Laurence and Chris from OneUp, and they're going to take us through their platform, and they're going to show us what it's about and help you learn more about it and see if it's right for you to help your company grow and succeed. So Laurence, I'll start with you, man. I'll give the floor to you. Thank you for being here at Staffing Monthly.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. I guess the good place to start, Dan, ultimately, you obviously speak to many business leaders. Like you said, you help them understand and analyze their data to help make decisions. Typically, what are you hearing from these people or, yeah, hearing from these people, and what challenges are they ultimately facing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the industry is definitely moved more into the challenges around the sales side. So I'm really interested to see what that half of your platform looks like. But, there still are the same recruiting challenges about, on the recruiting side, saying, hey, what progress are we making? We're starting to see greater attrition, maybe some quality indexes declining a little bit, and everybody's trying to solve recruiter capacity as far as and recruiter efficacy through technology. And I think technology is amazing, but I also think there's some fundamental KPIs or data that they should be looking at to really maybe optimize the process. And so I think really recruiter efficacy and even sales efficacy, I think, is the biggest challenges that we're seeing out there right now.
That's fair. And from just so I make sure I understand what you said correctly, when you say the sales side, are we talking going out and winning new business, business development, or
Yeah.
do you refer to something else?
Yeah, no, say exactly right. So basically, salespeople going out there hunting and getting new business. A lot of resistance right now in the industry. So people are trying to solve for it. They're trying to figure out how do we grow our business. And I think you got to get new clients in the door for sure. But I also think there's ways to better serve our existing clients and grow. So that's what we mean by new business and sales.
Yeah, and that's fair. And a lot of staffing firms in the USA, in the UK, where we deal with, like you say, there's been a lot of resistance in the market. So winning these new clients, getting your consultant to pick up the phone, it's become a lot harder. So a lot of firms that I speak to are typically running incentives, running competitions to try and drive that motivation throughout their teams. Do you, when you speak to your kind of your colleagues or the people that you speak to often, business leaders, are they often running competitions and incentives as well?
So I feel like it's pretty mixed. I feel like in our industry there are probably some of the higher performing companies might have more organized sales campaigns, and they run blitzes and they have leaderboards and they incentivize things. But I would say by and large, most of the industry is probably not doing that because it's hard to compare sales reps against each other, especially if they might be in different markets or different verticals, because someone that sells to enterprise, they might have to work a lot harder and a lot longer to get one deal in, but that deal might have greater value overall. Whereas someone that actually works in, selling small to medium business, those deals come a little bit more frequent and they can hit. So like, I think a lot of businesses struggle with understanding, like, how do you actually qualify, a leaderboard effectively to really run a campaign. So I think that's a challenge that I see.
Yeah, and that's fair. And hopefully, when we obviously jump in, we can show you how we potentially can simplify that. And obviously, going back to the other end of the spectrum, help identify maybe what to incentivize, the right behaviors, the right KPIs, which is obviously one of the main things that you speak to your the business leaders around. Now, you mentioned obviously having clear KPIs that provide the insight is important. What do you feel are kind of again, it's different for every firm. I appreciate that, but what would you say is the most common thing that you would want your leaders to be tracking or looking at within the business?
Yeah, if I'm going to stay right on the sales side, which I would love to stay over here because that's where I'm more passionate about, is I think it's really important for leaders of organizations, or especially sales leaders, to have the sales pipeline completely mapped out. So they should know how many activities can a salesperson do in a given week for prospecting new business. How many activities can they do to manage and grow existing business, right? So kind of your true BD activities. And then really, what is the throughput yield of that? How many meetings are they getting based off these activities? How many, proposals are they sending out based on those sales meetings? How many meetings does it take to get to a proposal? How many of those proposals are coming back signed and business closed? And then how many of those are really actually converting into billing clients? Because just because you get a contract signed doesn't always mean that you get an order or get to fill the order and you turn it into a billing client. So I teach the model where you actually measure that entire step, and then you're looking at the yield of the conversions at each of those stages. So really that actually sets different KPIs when you actually backwards plan from, hey, this is the organization's goal for new revenue in the door. So each sales rep has to contribute this amount. And let's say for sake of argument, it's $400,000 of new gross margin coming in the door for a rep in a year. You're going to know what is the average value of a new client that you bring in because you've got that data. So you'll know exactly how many clients does it going to take you to get in order to hit your gross margin goal for the year. And if you have all of these KPIs mapped out, you're going to know how many contracts are you going to have to get back? How many proposals are you going to have to get back? How many meetings are you going to have? And how much work are you going to have to do to get those meetings? And once you understand the work that goes into getting a billing client, like those are your KPIs. And that's what you should be looking at as a leader every single really week and month to say, are my people doing the required work to get the desired result? So that's what I look at on the sales side. That's what I teach. And it's
Yeah.
not always easy to visualize that across the board because it is different. Laurence, you look like a trained assassin. It might take you 5 calls to get a billing client. I'm not very good at this. It might take me 1,000, So it's not fair to compare us on those two things that you just got to show up and get business. And for me, I got to work for it.
Yeah, and maybe not 5 calls, but yeah, I appreciate that. Now that's good from a business leader point of view. Obviously, knowing exactly what levers need to be pulled, what success our people are having, because activity is great. But if you're having a lot of activity, it's not leading to success, like you've just said, it's all redundant. So
Right.
highlighting those areas from a business leader's point of view is really important. But also from a consultant level, I'd like to ask you a question. So, and
Sure.
this I'd like to get across to your audience that OneUp, we work with multiple different CRMs, mainly in the staffing space. And typically what I hear is visibility into what you've just described. So knowing what levers need to be pulled across the sales funnel can be hard from a consultant level. Do you hear, I appreciate you mainly speak to leaders, but do they ever give you feedback about the visibility from a consultant level can be challenging for them to know exactly what to do on a day to day?
Just to quickly jump in as well. So when we say consultant level, but a UK language there, so we're talking about rep level, so salespeople level, essentially.
That's good. I appreciate you translating that for me because when I think consultant level, I think of like what I do when I'm consulting with all
Apologies.
of these agencies. So yeah, there actually is a large desire, especially with these newer generations. They want visibility in their activities. What I've seen is most salespeople that that I would want on my sales team, they're hungry, they're success motivated, and they want to know what works. They want to be able to go in and be like, is this working or is it not working? And frankly, what I love, and this is something that might be a little bit, I guess, maybe polarizing or the hot take, but I know a lot of the older generations look at the younger generations and they're like, oh, they're lazy. They don't want to do the work. And it's like, I don't think it's exactly that. I just think they want to get the desired end result with less work. And I don't think that's being lazy. I think it's being smart. In fact, it was the older generations that used to say, work smarter, not harder. yet that they kind of criticize these younger generations for wanting to do exactly that. So I think if you actually have that self-service portal or wait for them to look and be like, man, I got to step it up, or if I do a little bit over here, I'm going to get that desired end result. I think that is a need, and it's going to be a greater need as time goes on.
Yeah, I appreciate that response. And to be fair, I'm happy with the questions I've asked, happy with the questions you've answered. I'll definitely be able to show you how OneUp can solve some of these challenges. But before I do that, Chris, obviously you're sitting here. It'd be good to get your feedback to us if you feel like there's anything else worth asking Daniel, basically.
Only question would be, from your opinion, Dan, do you think with the state of technology, particularly if we're looking at CRMs, ATSs within the recruitment sector that are being used, particularly from a sales level, do you feel from a management perspective, it's easy enough to get an understanding around one, those KPIs, those metrics, but then also that journey that you mentioned in terms of ratios, conversions, stage by stage? Or do you feel like actually a lot of that's being run in things like spreadsheets and kind of external sources to be able to pull that information?
So I am no stranger to the statement I'm about to make, and I know it's also hot take controversial, but no, from a sales standpoint, so from an operations standpoint, the data is amazing. And I feel like, access to data through things like, Aviante's Bold, their insights platform, or maybe even Bullhorn's analytics, whatever. Like, I feel like you can get good operational data. I do feel like historically it's been more challenging to get sales centric data for the pure SDR, for the hunter, for that person. I feel like it gets a little bit more convoluted. And I feel like what happens is the best that you get are activity reports that come out that don't really tell the whole story. And you got to put it into a spreadsheet to connect the dots. And then some of the more sophisticated agencies are using things like, BI or Tableau to really bring it to life. And then if they're with a platform that has an API, they'll try to connect those two documents. But historically, I think it's very hard to get true sales-centric data and insights out of even the most popular ATSs or software platforms in our industry.
Yeah, which is fair. And in fairness to CRMs, ATSs, they've got to be a mile wide. It's impossible to be deep on every aspect, and they're not built specifically around sales. They do a lot of things, I think, for sales, don't get me wrong, but they're not built for it. I think that's a good segue for yourself, Laurence, for us to dive into OneUp.
Yeah.
Happily. So you guys should be able to see some dials on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So just to give a really quick overview of what OneUp is, we are a performance management tool that are built for the sales world and the staffing world. Now, our platform, I would say, is split up into three key areas. So you've got ways to visualize data in the form of dashboards, in the form of reports, and then the ways to harness that data for, like you say, the hungry individuals. We can automate competitions, incentives within the platform. So if you're working in a hybrid world and you want to motivate your staff, I'll show you how to do that within the platform. Or if you want to do that within the office, we also can put things on TV screens and reward success. A good place to start will probably be the dashboard, Dan, because you mentioned, obviously, like you say, in today's world, and it's a limitation that I speak to most CRM providers about, or CRM users, I would say, is visibility into what people need to do or what sales reps need to do isn't very clear outside of the revenue that they need to make. So everything that you're seeing right here, all the dials, they are pulled in real time from the CRM you are using. So if you're using Bullhorn, if you're using Aviante, if you're using Target Recruit, for example, if you log something, it will be pulled into this system in real time. And the idea is I should be able to log on and know exactly what area I need to focus on. And it's not around just giving me pointless KPIs. This platform should guide you and help you towards doing the activities that are going to lead to the revenue at the end, like you said, Dan. And it supplements by the color scheme, because if I have a metric that's in red, that means I am obviously underperforming in that particular metric. If a metric is in yellow, it means I am on track to achieve that target. And green will mean I've hit or exceeded that target, with the ghost line showing me where I really should be during that, where I really should be for that target during that time period. Now, OneUp, I would say, is an extremely customizable product. So everything you're seeing, you'll be able to display it in any way you want. If you want to change the time frame, you can change the time frame. And one thing I will definitely say is important, these metrics here that you're seeing can be changed. So if you want a more BD, business development focused approach, you can change the dials. If you want a more staff focused approach for delivery consultants, you can change the dials. We understand that not only every firm is different, but obviously each individual within the firm will have different roles. So basically, if you can put whatever you want in front of them that will have the most impact for them to hit their targets. Like I said, the goal is to help guide you towards that target. So I would say that is our target widgets. You also can probably see this drill down button every time I hover over something. So OneUp isn't just going to just give you numbers. So as a sales rep, if I've got 3 CV sends here, but in actual fact, I've had 5, that means I haven't updated Avionte correctly. I haven't updated Bullhorn correctly. And it should incentivize me to go back on the CRM. And now your reports down are going to be a lot more accurate. And from an operational standpoint, obviously, it's going to be a big benefit for you. So if I click on that drill down button, I'll see when something is logged. So we have obviously target and trend line, but also more importantly, what is logged. So Isaiah has been sent, Zoe and Rory have been sent, but I haven't sent Dan and I haven't sent Chris. So I need to go back on the CRM and obviously do the right behaviors. So going down, we've also got activity widgets. So you may not want to target people on calls and emails, but it's very important for a rep to understand how much work is going into getting these client meetings, going into getting these jobs. Like you said, how much work is going into getting terms signed, because it's very important for a consultant, but also their manager to understand how effective they're being. So conversions and ratios, which we talked about, we also have built into the platform. And again, it would be pulled in real time. You can decide on what ratio is important to you. If you're doing more business development, it might be calls to meetings booked, for example. If we're talking about the recruiting side, it'll be CVs sent to interviews. So a good example being in 2023, across OneUp's customer base, it took 3 CVs to get 1 interview. So if I logged on as a consultant, I know that my ratio is very good. But if it was 5 to 1, I know I need support from my manager or speak to someone else in my team. Next, we have competition widgets. So like I say, the targets are there to show you what you need to do. The ratios are there to show you how efficient you're being at doing it. But the other half of the battle is going away and actually being motivated to do the role, right? So again, it will update in real time. So whatever CRM you are using, anything that is logged will be pulled into here. So if you're running a competition on placements, for example, and Lucy went ahead of Seth in real time, Seth is now going to get that natural motivating boost to try and get that first place back, hopefully, right? And then a leaderboard is a way for you to track one singular metric, whatever choice you make, right? Whereas a league is a way for you to track multiple different metrics against individuals or teams. So let's say, Dan, you were running incentive for these 3 metrics here. You might want to put 1 point for a CV send, but then 10 points for a first interview. Because then that way you're incentivizing the right behaviors and you won't just get a load of rubbish CVs through from your reps. Now, a few different examples I can give you is Q3 senior consultants tracking against this, or you've got recruiter of the year you might want to track, or you might want to do contract v perm. If you're a larger organization, you might want to do office v office v office. And now you can include everyone within the incentive. Now, you mentioned that most sales reps are hungry and they're competitive. I personally love the leagues. I love the leaderboards, but some people are not wired that way. They're very good at their role, but they don't like the competitiveness of a head-to-head competition, right? Which is absolutely fine. Everyone is different. So what we've built within the platform is an active mission. And an active mission is a way for everyone in the organization or everyone in a team to collectively work towards a goal. And again, it will update in real time. So if they make revenue, they can see what their work is to get in the goal at the end of it. And then lastly, we have a personal target. So a personal target, let's say you have a one-to-one with one of your sales reps, Dan, and they tell you, okay, yes, I want a promotion, or they might want to say, I want to save up for a nice new car. I want to propose to my partner, save up for an engagement ring. You can place that within the personal target. So we're not only showing you what needs to be done. Like I say, now they're not only motivated by work-related things, they're also related by their personal things that's going to motivate them to go and make those dials, make those placements and things like that. So as a rundown of our dashboard, from what you can see from most of your, obviously you work with companies with multiple different CRMs, but how would you say this compares overall to most CRMs you see from a visualization standpoint?
So overall, I do like the layout. I like the customization ability of it, where you can actually like move your widgets around. That's nice. I feel like a lot of the tools that are similar, they've kind of gone that route. So I do like that. I like your intuitiveness. Like the usability seems actually more intuitive than a lot of the other tools I've seen. Obviously, coming from the Kanban system, I love the red, yellow, green. So I like that piece of it. I will tell you the things that I drew the most from that I think are great. I love the way that you display the leaderboard, and I like the fact that it's real time. So when you mentioned if Lucy goes ahead of Seth and Seth gets that notification and he's like, oh, I got to step it up. I believe in competitive sales teams, so I think that's awesome. But what I really, really connected with me that I've not actually seen done, and not saying it doesn't exist, but in my world, I've not seen it, is with the missions. I love the fact, in my world, I typically advise on having like inter-team competition for bragging rights, but then team collaboration to hit the overall goal because like we win together, we lose together. So I like the company retreat, but going that step further, when you mentioned about tying it personally, I love that you can have individual promotions to say, hey, what's important to you? What are you trying to accomplish kind of personally this year? One of the things that I advise on, and I've actually done as a leader in my own company, is I try to ask people like, what's your big thing that you're trying to do this year? And you hear, especially these younger generations, that save up for a house,
Yeah.
or an engagement ring. Those are very common things. And I love it if a company can say, hey, I'm going to put an extra special incentive just for you here, to where if you hit this target, you create this much value for the company. Yeah, you're going to get your typical compensation, but I'm going to put a spiff in here to actually help you, that if you achieve this, I'm going to share some additional value with you and maybe give you this amount that you can put towards that ring, or this amount that's going to go towards that house. I think that's a really amazing way to create horizontal, or vertical alignment with the organization about what really matters to the people. So I like that a lot. That's a nice touch.
Appreciate that feedback. And I definitely agree, because I do exactly the same. We win together, we lose together. I like the personal missions, but I also like the leaderboards and the leagues as well. So like I say, different ways to incentivize different people. And also I'll touch on this very quickly, because where a consultant would typically log into OneUp and obviously know what they need to do, it doesn't just mean that a consultant would use this. Mid-level management, directors would also be able to build their own dashboards out. So again, you could obviously have different personas of delivery consultants, maybe BD, like SDRs, BDRs, just sales focused dashboards. Or you could actually say, okay, from a leader standpoint, instead of me having to speak to my managers or speaking to my reps, I just want to jump on and understand, okay, for my team or for my company, kind of what's going on. Follows exactly the same rules of the color system, the dials, the activity widgets. But instead of individual contributors, you now can understand from a team perspective, who needs my focus. And a nice analogy I've heard is it's like a director can keep their finger on the pulse of their business. Like I say, less conversations, just more, okay, great. I can actually see, okay, our ratio from interview to placement for this year is a lot lower than normal. What's going on? And I can go and speak to my managers around that. And again, you speak to obviously business leaders. So from a consultant standpoint, or sorry, I've used the wrong word. In your term, it's sales rep standpoint. You said that visualization is a lot better. But from, let's say, a leadership standpoint, if we flip it, how do you feel like OneUp would compare from a dashboard point of view?
So I do like it for the leadership perspective, like, because I want to know that. What I was going to ask there is, obviously leaders have so many things going on, like their bandwidth is spread in a lot of different areas. So I want to know, like, how does it get notified? And there's two, I guess this is a two-level question. One, you said you can go in and manually input your KPI. So if it's like, hey, we have a target of X number of jobs added, and then it's going to measure red, yellow, green against the target we put in there. Does this have some automation ability where it's like, we're going to let the last quarter set the benchmark, or maybe Q1 set the benchmark, or maybe the team average set the benchmark, where it's basically looking at the team and it will automatically set KPIs based on what is really going to get us to our end goal of revenue? So I'll start there. So like, do you have to manually input your KPIs, or does it have the ability to actually track and understand the data and constantly update the KPIs in some interval to always be resetting so you're improving performance? So I'll start with that question.
Very good question. I'll answer that and say you will set the KPIs manually. It won't automatically change.
Okay.
Very good question. I understand the use case. But if you have say someone would champion this inside your organization. So if one quarter, I'll show you how you work out performance in a quarter in a second. But let's say over one quarter, these are your performances. You'll be able to then obviously change that for the next quarter. So there is a way around it. It wouldn't automatically do it, but what I'll show you is how easy this system is to use and set up in a minute.
Okay.
So that will probably be the way around it, unless you have another take on that, Chris, I would say.
No, that is how things are today. And interesting you bring that up, Dan, because we've actually talked about that. And that's kind of like our version of the next iteration if we do head down that path of kind of smart targets of waterfalling it basically based off historic conversions and ratios and so on. However, I think that there's a few challenges in that because sometimes like you if you kind of automate all of that stuff, it leaves a lot of room for error. And if that KPI, that data is maybe even wrong, or if that KPI and end result isn't great and the conversions and ratios need improvement, it can set the wrong targets. So there's a lot of kind of variables that happen within that, I think, that could impact that. But we've definitely talked about it. At the moment, it's very much driven by the kind of heroes and the users of the platform.
And I definitely get that. I mean, I understand the kind of the arguments we made on both sides there. The next question I have about that, where that was leading to, is as a leader, as much as I would love to see leaders block out time every single week and be disciplined to go look at this dashboard and study it, sometimes things happen. Sometimes things come up. A client will call, take a meeting, and you got to put it in that kind of executive analysis slot. So is there a trigger or something that would say, hey, you know what, we know that we need to be converting our proposals at 75%. 75% of our proposals have to come back as contracts to stay on track. And as soon as it flashes below, like let's say a sales rep drops to 70 or 60%, in a month or a quarter or whatever the measurement period is, we'll automatically send that leader a notification to say, hey, something just happened here. Kind of like the tire or check engine light that comes on your dashboard, like it only pops on when it absolutely needs attention, so it gets your attention. Like, is there something like that outside of the leader having to come in and look at the dashboard and analyze the red, yellow, green?
Can I show you my take on that? Because technically, yes, but you can tell me if I've interpreted it right. And I would say a leader probably wouldn't do that on the dashboard. A leader would a dashboard is a way from a leader standpoint, to come on and just get a quick snapshot of, okay, everything's ticking along nicely. To be notified if someone's tracking under target, they would probably use the reporting function. So I would say the dashboard is mainly used from a consultant standpoint, but
Right.
of course leaders will jump on and get a quick view of what's going on. Where probably a team lead or a director would get more value and really start understanding who needs support, which what you just said, maybe something is tracking lower than it should, and I need to step in, is within these reports. And what you're looking at are pre-built reports. Obviously, if you hypothetically invested in OneUp, you would come in here, build a report, save it, and then this will be your list of reports. So if I just quickly click on a report, what you'll be greeted with is metrics at the top, users down the side, and then the information is in the middle. It follows the same RAG system or red, amber, green system as the dashboard. So to obviously put your attention on which needs focus, and then it's got the same drill down button. Now, I typically would leave this bit at the end of the reporting discussion I have, but because you've asked the question, I'm going to show you something. So let's pretend I am a team leader and this is my team that I'm dealing with. But like you say, I can't come in here every day, look at the report, or every week and look at the report. I just want to be notified when basically for my one-to-ones. Say I have a one-to-one every other day. I want to be notified of my team's performance for my one-to-one. What you can do is automate any report and land it in anyone's inbox of your choice. So let's say I'm a team leader of 10 reps and I want my report in my inbox at 8 a.m. every Monday. Your one-to-ones are going to be led now by data instead of kind of how things going, what's going on. Your one-to-ones are going to be led by this is what we need support in this week. Or if you want to change it to daily or every other day, you can choose when you want to do it. And then you can put that, keep in mind, you can send anything to anyone in the company. So that can be your team leads, it could be your directors, it could be your board directors, whatever you feel that you want to send these reports to. Now, appreciate it's not really a trigger. It's not so much as a trigger like you asked, but can you see how that would be people being notified of how to keep on top of their team while they're still hustling and bustling within the office and doing other things?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I do like the fact that you can actually trigger reports to go out on a regular cadence, and it will just take a snapshot of that period of time and send it out. I think that's really important. I if you guys have a development roadmap, and by no means am I going to tell you how to build your piece of technology, but if you had a development roadmap that you had influence over, I would suggest that to say, hey, we basically want to have, set not only just KPIs, but like floors, like what is the warning, and almost get a real-time notification, like an email would just go out to the leader of that person to say, hey, we cannot have people closing contracts to proposal at lower than 50%. That cannot happen. So as soon as that triggers that way, then they'll automatically get an email that says, look at this person's conversion rate in this area, to let them just draw their attention specifically to that problem. I think that would be a great feature, especially in a very busy world today.
Yeah, what I like about this conversation, Dan, is I feel like you've seen our roadmap, which is interesting. So that's basically what we're heading towards. So our next kind of generation is basically that proactive data piece. The biggest part for us and what we've been developing for years now is making sure that how do we get all the data in one place as a single source of truth for multiple platforms? So it's not just CRMs, it's VoIP systems, timesheet systems, pulling it into one place. And the second piece is how do you make that data as visually appealing as possible and engaging as you can in a certain way that it means that not only senior leaders or ops directors or managers will kind of engage with that data, but also sales reps, recruitment consultants, and so on. Because data is only as good as it's being used. You could have all of it in one place. If no one's accessing it, it's next to pointless. So that's been our biggest goal, which we feel like we've achieved now. The next step for us is, okay, so with this data, how do we then be proactive with it as well and push basically almost like notifications, if you will, as you're referencing?
So I think it's great, especially if you guys get to that point, because that's really what leaders need to know. They need to know when there's a problem. And then the big thing that I teach and coach on is how do you interpret that data? Because if someone says, kind of keeping on the sales track here, if I see someone's conversion rates from meetings to proposals decline, right? Like I know specifically what that's telling me. Not everybody does, but it's like, okay, we're either taking meetings that we shouldn't, we're not doing the discovery that we should, we're disqualifying at a higher rate than we probably should be, which is going to be a different challenge and a different solution. Or maybe the prospect is not wanting to see a proposal because we're not selling in value, which maybe is a training issue, right? So, or messaging issue. So it's like, if I know that my conversion rate drops too low there, like I know where to look and I know what insights I need to apply to make the right corrective action. And that's really where, this tool I think would be a great setup. So people could actually have like the trigger to say, hey, you need to look here, so they can focus their executive brain power on how to solve the problems, versus just trying to figure out where to look. And that's where I think your tool really takes them a long way towards that process.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. And it's probably a nice segue into, I won't show you every report here because I'm conscious of time, but something you've just said around trying to highlight in areas that basically our efficiencies within the business, can we highlight it so I have more time to spend on other areas? It'd be really good to show you how we are currently doing that for our current clients. But what I will start by showing you is how easy a report it actually is to build. Because like you said, there's other platforms out there that you can get analytics with, but you are going to need a data science degree to build some of these reports. Whereas our system is very easy to build something. So a report can be built off a user basis, a team basis, a company basis, or as of recently, we've introduced client reporting, job reporting, and candidate reporting. Again, I won't run through all of them, but a good example would be if I do a team report, and I appreciate some of your business leaders might build different reports, but I just want to show them how easy something like this is to put together. So again, these metrics will be pulled in real time from the CRMs that they are using. And we also don't only pull things from CRMs. Say you're using a VoIP provider, we'll be able to pull outbound calls, total placements. If you're a temp agency and you're using a timesheet portal, maybe you want to track how many contractors you have out or something, contract placements, contract starters, we can track that as well. And then lastly, let's just track total revenue. Now, I appreciate this is a bit of a mishmash report because I've put a few different things on it, but let's pretend you were trying to build this report at the moment. How quick do you, compared to obviously the CRMs that you currently are using, how quickly do you feel like that is compared to the people you speak to are currently trying to build reports at the moment?
So I like that. I mean, that's super easy. I honestly, looking at that, I think it builds the ability to pull that data in a lot quicker than how
Apologies, I refreshed it. Sorry about that. I refreshed it. I'll do it while you're speaking. I'll also build it again. Apologies.
Yeah, no worries. It's a lot easier. I've used a lot of the platforms, and the data science comment definitely rings true. Is that it's sometimes like the data all lives in the system. We know it's all in there, but it is hard to pull it out in an intuitive way. And that's one thing I do commend your platform on. It actually is very user friendly and seems easy to use. Like pulling the reports you need.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. That I would say is one of the biggest reasons people reach out to us, because they want access to their data, but it's a really easy way to pull that information out. It's really intuitive, the word you used. And going back to kind of efficiencies and ratios and having more time to focus on executive activities, something like this. So if you did a performance funnel report, we mentioned obviously on the dashboard how a consultant would understand how effective they're being. But let's say a team leader or a director came on here and they basically could come on across the whole recruitment funnel. Where are we kind of falling behind where we should be, or where should our focus be from a company level or from my team level? Each individual rep, how are they kind of producing or performer, I should say. So let's say last quarter, I want to understand how people perform last quarter. And let's say Lawson, he's 107% to his CV target. So he's obviously doing very well in theory. On most of your reports, it would look like he's doing very well. But if you look at his ratio, he's got one of the worst CVs to interview ratios on the team. He's obviously not as effective at sourcing candidates for whatever reason. And if you look at his first interview rate, it's a lot lower. He's only 38% to target. So as a business leader, I know that I need to have a chat with Lawson to understand, okay, what are you doing within your process for sourcing candidates? Is it a value thing? Are you not explaining the job very well to the candidates? Are you not basically selling your candidate very well to your client? There is something fundamentally going wrong within that process. And when, like you say, when you start doing that across different parts of the recruitment funnel, that's when a big jump up in performance happens with regards to revenue. And that's obviously what the business leaders are going to care about, because we all go to work to obviously make money. And that goes a long way to achieving those kind of goals. And then another thing I will show you, this is the last thing on performance reports, is you obviously mentioned you yourself can understand trends over time. If something is trending in a particular way, you kind of know what that means, and obviously know how to train people to get that back up. So if, let's say last quarter, I can break last quarter down by month, week, or day. And that can be done on any metric of your choice. But let's say for CV sends, across the perm team, obviously in April, that's a lot lower. But in May and in June, it's gradually going up. And it's not just teams you can track. You can also track individual people. And then also you can track their conversion ratios as well, right next to each other. So it's very easy for a team manager to manage their team for trend analysis, like you said as well. And then last report I'll show you, because I appreciate, obviously, we haven't got enough time to run through all the reports. Obviously, I told you can do job reporting, client reporting. A nice report I'll show you is just client reporting, because you mentioned it's a good insight for a business leader to understand what basically is my best client, what is giving me the best money. So if I look at, say, Jones and Nelson as an example, in theory, on paper, at first glance, Jones and Nelson look like our best client. They're giving us the most money. But if you actually look at their first interviews to placements, so if I open that column there, it will say first interviews to placements. It's taking nearly 20 interviews to get one placement. So a lot of work is going into getting that revenue. Whereas if we look at someone like Williams Group, although we've only billed 9,000, and for people in the USA, if you invested in OneUp, it would say dollars. It's taken a third of the work to obviously get that placement. So if I was a business leader or a team manager, I would speak to that consultant and I would say, why haven't we got more jobs on with Williams Group? Can we get more jobs on with them? And I'll explain to them, if you did get more business with Williams Group, you're going to make more money off the back end compared to working with Jones and Nelson. Now, there are obviously loads of use cases I can go through, but again, conscious of time. But how do you feel like some of these reports, how do you feel like some of your clientele would basically benefit from this? Do you feel like they would, is probably the right question. I'll ask a leading question there. Apologies.
So I think they will. And this is actually something I really like, because a lot of things I coach on are return on resources, and yeah, I do agree that Jones Nelson, you've made more money off them. With at the end of the day, like, that's really what you're trying to do in this business, is make the money. However, that return on resources might actually be less. And the challenge that I have with that as a leader is I need to make sure, especially with finite resources and a very capped labor market with how tight it is, I need to make sure that we're getting the best return on all of our resources of candidates and time and effort as we can. So I would look at this and I would say, hey, what do we need to do to optimize the Jones Nelson process? Because we have a lot of opportunity there, but how do we get this down to where we're only sending out, 7 CVs, 10 CVs, and cut that in half? That way we're going to get a better return on those resources and free up more time to maybe focus on, some of the other ones that are not even getting the coverage, and I think that's where I really like this and understanding the ratios, because it will tell you, what do I need to optimize? And if you attended any of the sessions at the Aviante Connect a couple months ago, one of the key elements from Rishabh Malhotra, the CEO, his keynote was, how do I get 1% improvement at every single stage of the business? And if I focus on just that slight edge throughout the entire business, that's a massive gain. So applying that same concept here, I know that I've got an opportunity to improve my return on resources with Jones Nelson, but I also probably will free up resources to apply elsewhere to generate more revenue.
Yeah, no, I really like that, and I'm going to use your reverse one for Jones and Nelson in my demos going forward. So I appreciate that as well. Is there anything, because when I actually showed Dan the automate function at the start of the reporting, because he asked a question about it. So is there anything from your standpoint, Chris, that I should show about reporting? Because I appreciate there's a lot that we haven't covered.
No, probably the only thing I would just quickly show is the kind of TV displays to show off some of the gamification, just for the sake of time.
Of course. I'll whiz through this because I'm conscious that we're obviously short for time. So I showed you obviously motivate within the platform, within the dashboards, but also if you've got TVs in your office, it's just a different way to visualize and different way to motivate your team, right? So again, follows the same rules as the dashboard and the reports. It will be pulled in real time. If you wanted to brand this differently, like we have a blue logo. If you had a red logo, you could put red background, whatever. But I'll just whiz through a few different examples. You could have it set up however you want, right? So we have percentage to revenue targets. We also, if I move on, we have, if you do temp work, you can see how many contractors you have out with their daily GP. You can see from a color scheme and visualization standpoint, where are individuals tracking against different metrics, and then they know where they should be focusing on outside of the dashboard. It could also be on their TVs. We also can upload PDFs. So this is a new starter example, but let's say I've seen Hall of Fame, maybe a hot job that everyone in their company wants to work on could be put on the TVs as well. And then, like you said, competitions. People are in most sales organizations, there's going to be a lot of competition. So we've obviously got biller of the month. We've got leagues, like I showed you in the dashboard. Now, one question I want to ask you, Dan, before we finish. A lot of staffing firms, they celebrate. So if someone makes a placement, there's a lot of sing song and like well done, clapping. Like there's loads of different ways. What is the most common way you would say someone celebrates from people you speak to?
So it's a little bit of that, but across distributed networks, I think there's either Slack channels or kind of group messaging apps where people will just kind of celebrate that way. There's definitely some other tools out there, even like I hate to do it, but like the all email, right? Like there's definitely some celebrations for some bigger stuff. Unfortunately, I think that I'm a money ball guy, so I'm a base hits win ball games kind of guy. So I feel like a lot of the winning really happens with the stuff that goes uncelebrated. But I guess that's my take on it.
No, I 100% agree with you, because if you don't make the calls, you don't send the emails, you're not going to get the jobs, and you're not going to be able to you're not going to get the revenue without the work that goes up to it, right? So celebrating the smaller wins is important as well. And someone who's a really high flyer, senior consultant, they're going to make a lot of revenue, but a new starter, you need to celebrate maybe their first 10 CV sends, right? Because they're not going to get the same reward as a senior consultant. The reason I asked that question is because within the OneUp platform, obviously I'm going to do this manually, but it will be done automatically if someone invested in OneUp. So let's say someone like Ryan made a placement, or if you wanted to celebrate Ryan's first 20 CV sends, what would happen is this would be showing up on the TV screens around the offices that whatever company have.
You can touch this. You can touch this.
So I would say that would probably be a rundown of the OneUp platform. Is there any questions from either of you before I kind of stop sharing my screen around the platform?
No, I mean, I think it's a good run through. Obviously, if anybody, wants to go into a specific use case for their business, they can absolutely, reach out to you directly and go deeper down. But I think you covered my questions. I like the customization of it. I like that you can actually manually input your KPI. So, and you can do that. It could be different per rep. I didn't ask that earlier, right? So like if I have one person that I know based on their track record, their performance log, that it takes, 400 activities a week to get to a billing client, like I can set those KPIs for them. But if someone else is like at 200 activities, like I can set up that piece of it to see, okay.
Yeah, everything you see is customizable. I mean, even that kind of deal trigger that you just saw on the TV, like the music, all of that's customizable. You can have different deal anthems or kind of placement anthems per consultant, like or per sales rep, like you name it. Literally everything you've seen is customizable.
So I think that's great. On that trigger for the kind of the fun celebration, how can you almost build out like a I call it like a new hire journey, right? So like so every kind of person that starts with a company from day one that makes it to success, there's some pretty common milestones that the people have to hit in order to get to success. Can you almost like build that piece out so it's like, hey, listen, when this person hits their 10th CV, we're going to celebrate. When they make their first placement, we're going to celebrate. When they hit this level of placements in a month, we're going to like, and almost build that out so you can see where not only does it trigger the celebration and let the team know like, wow, this person's really on their way, but it also shows progress on that milestone towards success. Is that how that can work?
Short answer is yes. Longer answer is there's also two ways you can do it. One is those kind of deal triggers, placement triggers, or any other metric trigger on the TVs. The second way is also target templates. So all the targets, you don't have to individually set them if you don't want to. You might have a model framework for a new starter of what they need to achieve over, I don't know, 3-month ramping period as an example. And you would literally just tick that template and it would just get set up straight away, inject into their dashboards and be adjusted specifically to them and prorated as they go. And then also, yes, those anthems on the TVs.
I think it's great. I think that's a nice touch. I like how you gamify that there. So no, I'm excited. I think it's a really cool tool. I think it'd be a great tool for obviously I know that everything you just showed mostly on the sales side, because that's where my mind goes. I know that you got the same functionality on the recruiting side. So if anyone out there is watching and they're like, hey, how does this work for our recruiters? You obviously saw a lot of the language specific to recruiters, but you can build all that out for your recruiters. I like that piece of it, and you can reach out to Laurence and Chris on that. Is there any last thing that you guys want to share in our session today with the audience, or maybe tell them the best way to connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, if someone was interested, which hopefully they are after that great demonstration, what I would love if anyone wants to connect with us, do it on LinkedIn, or if I provide you with our emails, Dan, because if they do it on the website, come through inbound, you may not get to speak to me.
Oh, deal breaker, Laurence, deal
Deal
breaker.
breaker. Then you won't buy the product. You'll be
That's
speaking
it.
to someone
That's
else,
it.
right?
But yeah, that's it. We're done.
You might end up speaking to Chris, and no one wants that.
Jeez, I don't know. I need a pretty big discount if I get stuck talking to Chris here. I don't know. No, that's great, guys. I'll make sure that all of those links get put right on page here, so it's easy for people to get a hold of you through LinkedIn. If you've got a calendar booking link that you like to use, we can actually get it on page here in the comments of YouTube here. But guys, I appreciate your time. It was great meeting you at the Connect conference and now getting to explore the platform even more. I like the usability. I like what you're building and bringing to the industry. So I appreciate you taking the time to share it with me today.
I appreciate your time as well. Thanks for having us.